Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go over and create a sterile field. Anytime that you get prepared to do any type of sterile procedure, you want to make sure that you wash your hands before. So I just wash my hands with soap and water, but if I hadn't, I would take the waterless soap and I would wash my hands as I instructed you until the waterless soap is dry. Now what I'm going to do today is set up a sterile field. So the concept that you need to remember is that when we set up a sterile field, what we're doing is we're attempting to create a field that we can place sterile items onto. Remember, when you open up your field, the outside of the packages are clean, so I can touch them with clean hands. But when I have my field all ready with all of the items on it, I can only touch the sterile field with sterile gloves or sterile forceps. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up my sterile field. This happens to be a little miniature dressing kit, and then I'm going to open up here. Okay, so this is clean. I'm touching clean. Okay, I'm going to take it out of its package. I'm going to make sure that it hasn't expired, because remember, when things are expired, they're no longer any good. Anytime that you open up a sterile field, you need to make sure that you open it up this way. You're going to just touch a 1-inch edge of the drape, and you're going to pull it straight back. Then what you're going to do is touch the 1-inch edge of the drape here in the center. So away from you first. Then you're going to touch the drape 1-inch edge in the center. Then you're going to touch the drape and pull it towards you. Okay. Now let's talk about a few principles of this sterile field. 1. If this gets wet in any way, it's permeable and is no longer considered sterile. If you have a cold and you're sneezing and coughing all over the field, it's considered contaminated. So you should wear a mask if you have a cold. The other piece is once you get this field open and the way you like it and set up, you need to make sure not to turn your back on the field. If you have to leave the room in an emergency, then you want to cover it with a sterile drape. The other piece is always to remember to put this sterile field on a clean surface. Remember, the inside of this is sterile, the underside is clean, and there is a 1-inch edge that we consider dead or non-sterile on this field. So now I have this sterile field, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my forceps on my field. Good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a little sponge that I don't have in here that I need on my field. So now I've created a field. Now the other thing that I need to do with this dressing tray is, in order to touch it, I need to put on sterile gloves. If I needed to soak the dressings in sterile sodium chloride, then I'd need to set up a sterile bowl as well, which I'm going to do. A lot of equipment is re-sterilized over and over again. And when it's sterilized, you will see that it has this kind of demarcation on it with a date and time. Okay? So I'm going to set up a sterile bowl, and everything is kind of wrapped. Sterile fields are wrapped in the same way that the dressing tray, this sterile field around this bowl, was. So what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to grab the edge away from me. I'm going to grab the edge this way in the center, and then the 1-inch edge towards me. Now anything that falls below the waist is considered contaminated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sodium chloride. I'm always going to take these containers and open them with the top down to keep the inside sterile. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour my saline into the bowl, and then I can utilize this. All right. So now in order to touch this sterile field, I need to put on some sterile gloves. Again, you want to wash your hands before any sterile type of equipment is applied, sterile fields, procedures, and gloves. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up this package. And you can see when I open this up, there's this sealed area here. You can put your hands 1 inch away from that, right here on that inch edge. Open straight back. Inside of this package now, you have what I call a book of gloves. Remember, clean touches clean, sterile touches sterile. So I'm going to get rid of the outer wrapper because the contents of these gloves inside of this package are sterile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my book of gloves. You can see here that the left and the right hand, but it's fan folded down on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fan folded top, crimp it down so it lays flat. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same for the bottom so that it stays flat. Then you have here an edge that's fan folded. You're going to try to go underneath the edge and touch no more than 1 inch. And then what you're going to do is pull this open so that it lays flat. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, if you look at these, the fingers are sterile and the inside of the gloves, which are fan folded up, are considered clean. So I can grab the edge of the inside of this fan folded glove. I'm going to take this and pull it up from the paper. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand into the glove, and do not futz around too much with the wrist because you don't want to contaminate the glove. Now my hand is sterile, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the cuff of the other glove. Keep your thumb out because as you put this on, you don't want that sterile thumb to touch your skin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this glove on, and now I have my sterile gloves on. So now that I have them on, the thing that we teach our nursing students to do here at Kennebec Valley is to keep your hands above your waist, to keep them in visual contact with your eyes, because we all have the tendency to take our hands and rest them on our chest. So always have them in your visual field. Now that I'm sterile, I can touch my sterile field. I can arrange it in the way that I need to, okay, for this particular procedure. Okay. If I need to drop some dressings in my saline, and now I'm ready to perform my sterile procedure. So remember, sterile touches sterile, all right? All right, that's the end.